Okay, everyone. So we're here with Chris Whong, who is the head of developer relations at Mapbox, and we're going to do just a quick interview with Chris. Chris has been doing all kinds of cool stuff with opening up a better dev world for all of us who do Mapbox development. So welcome to the channel, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So just so people know you a bit, tell us a bit about what you're doing at Mapbox and what did you do before you came to Mapbox?
Yeah, so I was hired as a senior developer evangelist last summer, so summer of 2022. The simplest mission for developer relations is going to be to inspire and equip Mapbox developers. So inspire means show you lots of wonderful examples of things that are possible. Inspire with sharing and celebrating other people's successes and what they're building. And then equipping is like the documentation, code examples, lots of developer content. So all those combined. So there's lots of different channels for doing all of this, but yeah, that's the overall mission. In my past, I've worn a civic hacker hat. Came up in that world, I guess. That's where I kind of started doing a lot of web mapping. So using like public data and open data sets to help understand our cities. And I live in New York, so open data is plentiful here. And been tinkering with data and mapping and data visualization for many, many years. I actually spent 3 years in city government, built a lot of web mapping, like front-end heavy mapping applications. So trying to basically make urban planning data more accessible to people here in New York. I spent some time at various startups and various technology companies, a couple of them map related. So Cardo comes to mind. I also worked at Socrata, which is the like open data portal provider. So lots of data, lots of maps for this part of my career.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm guessing then you used Mapbox quite a lot in your development world before you worked for them. What did you find were some of the strengths and weaknesses of Mapbox?
I mean, I think like I've been a Mapbox, at least a web developer with Mapbox GL and Mapbox JS prior to that for probably 8 years. I also teach web mapping at NYU, so I've been teaching. When I switched over from like Leaflet to Mapbox in personal projects, that's when I started switching over teaching that as well. I would say the strengths are just kind of the how easy it is to get started. Right, there's just so many amazing examples. A lot of the times, especially in the people in the world that I come from, most of the time the source is available, so you can go peek into people's projects and see how they did that thing. And there's always some other interesting way to do something with a map, whether it's an animation or whether it's some kind of interesting overlay or visualization. And it's limited but only by people's creativity. But then a lot of people just put that stuff back into the ecosystem so others can learn. And I find that to be really helpful for people to get started. And same thing for my students is like everything you want is a Google search away, and you can find whatever subject matter you're interested in, whatever technique you're interested in. There'll be great examples. In terms of challenges, I think it's just the sort of same barriers to entry for anything technical, right? It's just that once you get stuck, you get really stuck if you don't have those lifelines. And I think that's something we have to deal with a lot, is trying to find those fixes. Stack Overflow, of course, every developer knows that that's kind of where you go. But when that doesn't work and it doesn't get you where you need to go, what can we do to help people with that? So
Yeah, I've definitely found over time that, yeah, like Mapbox really draws a lot of people. It's visually really great and it's really great for data. So like in the work you did with a lot of big data, it's unparalleled. Like you can't really beat it for web mapping. And I think like you're right, the complexity of it sometimes, especially GLJS, can be a barrier for people. It's Leaflet is a little bit easier, but it's partly because you can't do as much with Leaflet, right?
you can get started pretty quickly if all you've got is some data, whether it's GeoJSON already or if it's a shapefile or a CSV. You can get where you need to go quickly. The minute you need to start really understanding how web maps work and understanding vector tiles, and when you have data that is too large for GeoJSON and then you hit that wall of like, now I need to think about server things, that can be a big barrier. Yeah.
Great. So as a like former or current developer, I'm sure you still make maps all the time. What do you find, and coming into this role as the evangelist, what did you find were like, what did you really want to improve with dev relations, or where did you find it would really need help?
I wanted to make sure that people have a home base, right? So I want to make sure that there is when I got here, it's actually still up on the website right now, but if you go to mapbox.com/developers, you'll see the new developer landing page, which we just released in December. We actually still don't have a good link for it right now. So if you go, there's a developers menu, which has a few links to various things, but nothing really tying it together. So I wanted to make sure, there is a home base for this community. And I want to make sure that that's well publicized. And then in addition to that, like things like a Discord server, there was like a tweet that someone shared with me right after I got here. And it was somebody on Twitter, just randomly saying, why doesn't at Mapbox have a Discord server? And it was like, yeah, maybe we should. And it just gives people the ability to drop in. They can, see the, lurk on the chatter that's happening. And it's a little more, little less async than something like Stack Overflow or a GitHub issue thread. I will say, like, GitHub issues, especially if you have been following Mapbox for a long time, is where all the action was. And I think that's kind of slowed down a little bit and is not where there's a lot of community gathering anymore. And I think starting a Discord is a great place for us to just be welcoming to all and say, any level is welcome. Come in and ask your questions. So that's been running since we soft launched it in like October, but formally announced it in earlier this month. So we're already at like, I think there's like 250 people in there right now, which is great. A small handful of them are Mapboxers, so most of them are developers who come from the community. This week we're trying out like a little like developer show and tell tomorrow, to see how that goes. So that's been the story of my first several months here. Has just been a lot of like experimentation, trying out different mediums. We've done some developer spotlight videos, we've done some improvements to the docs, lots of different things, trying to dip our toes in and see what resonates with developers.
Right. Yes. Sounds interesting. Yeah. I mean, as a Mapbox developer for a long time, I never really thought about the Mapbox community, really. I mean, I would interact with actual employees of Mapbox, but there never was really clearly a space. I never thought of it like, oh, there's a community out there of us who do this and we could be a kind of team. So that's kind of fun. It's a little intimidating too, because it's like, oh, I'm going to be involved in this community of all these really good developers, but it's a great way for people to get help, for us to all get better at Mapbox and learn some tricks from each other. So I think building that community, I mean, I don't think it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, I'll throw in, when I worked in city government, I had some Mapbox experience and brought that, and we had our own little team. And as soon as people start learning the tricks and starting, all the little things you can do with a different style JSON or expressions and things like that, once you conquer one of those things, you really want to share it.
Yeah.
And I was always big about just put it on Twitter and put a little GIF next to it and show what you made, and like thought that was such a rad way to like get out of this like stuffy city government office and like just connect with the rest of the world. Not just with maps, with everything, but like specifically with maps also. There was a small group of people, a lot of them actually are my coworkers now, who would always jump on and be like, that's awesome, look what I built over here. And I'm basically just carrying that forward here at Mapbox and in an official capacity, which is pretty cool.
Cool. So on that, actually, what's it like working for Mapbox? I've considered working for Mapbox. I know a lot of viewers who maybe are heavy map developers would consider that. Is Mapbox hiring? Are they looking for developers? And what's it like to work there?
You should definitely check out our jobs page. I think there are still some listings up right now. Yeah, I'd say working here has been, fascinating. There's a lot of like, I guess, OGs, I would say, that I've encountered on GitHub threads over the years, and like can't believe that I can call them coworkers now, because they're kind of like legends in the mapping world. And then they're just kind of hanging out in a Slack channel, and now they're your peers or your friends. Very interesting. I will say, just it's a very welcoming environment for anyone who wants to whatever you're interested in and you want to push on. You're not going to find a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. It's still an environment where you're encouraged to think big and take on interesting challenges, and if you have a good reason for it, no one's going to stop you. So I guess a good example of that is like I saw an opportunity when I got here to revitalize geojson.io, which is like a popular tool for a lot of spatial developers, and I've used it many times over the years, but like it's just kind of was not really in anybody's wheelhouse to work on, right? It was built for a reason many years ago, and I was like, this is still used a lot. There's like 4,000 to 5,000 people a day that come in and actually use the thing, and we should fix some bugs on it. We should use the latest and greatest Mapbox technology, that sort of thing. So instead of going around asking for permission, you can kind of just go in and make those kinds of things happen here, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. So we touched on community building and also on little updates here and there. So what's something that I mean, a couple things you're excited about that are happening in your sphere and your kind of what you're doing, both something that happened recently that you think is really cool, and maybe something that we don't know about or that is in the pipeline that's kind of coming up that we can get excited about.
I guess what happened recently was just that we formally announced the DevRel program. So we have, mapbox.com/developers. We have the Discord. We put out a couple tools. So I put out like a developer cheat sheet. Just lots of things we're doing to get out into the community and share more, and basically get more feedback from people and see what they need. I think what's coming up in 2022, I have an idea for like a distributed hackathon, which would be pretty neat. I'm trying to do some more like educational outreach. So like everyone, there's a data viz class now at every university. There's lots of mapping opportunity, at code boot camps and things like that. So I'm trying to set up engagements so I can, show younger, newer developers like all the great things you can do with Mapbox. And then we're also doing like a tour of in-person meetups. So trying to figure out which cities we're going to come to now, but basically, like evening hours in person on a weeknight, you want to line up like 4 or 5 Mapbox developers to just same thing we're doing in the Discord show and tell, but like in person, and probably with, a handful of larger customers as well. So we'll be moving around the country trying to do that. So hopefully 5 or 6 of those in 2020.
Mapbox live touring, right on.
Yeah, I'm just calling them developer meetups. So
Yeah.
we'll see how they go. But as long as there's a big enough population center, I'm sure there's plenty of Mapbox developers who'll come out and share.
Totally, and map nerds in general. In terms of helping individual developers with questions, because a lot of people on the channel are developers that are kind of learning Mapbox and stuff like that. Obviously, you mentioned the Discord. Is that the best place for people to go? I know people sometimes have reached out directly to Mapbox support. Is that a good thing to do? Or just post on Stack Overflow or post a GitHub issue? What's the best way for people to get in touch if they need help?
So I would say the Discord is probably the lowest barrier and more likely to just get if you have something simple, that you don't need to post tons and tons of code and have a really long discussion on, it's a great place to get pointed in the right direction, right? So very low barrier to entry, just download Discord, sign up and come in, and it's chat style. So it's very accessible to everybody. I would say, reserve GitHub for if you have a bug or a very serious feature request where you want to do a deep technical dive and post a lot of examples and you need them to persist so you can link to them. And then Stack Overflow, for same types of questions that you might ask in Discord, but where again you want the persistence, right? You want something that you can link to later, because you're trying to solve a problem, but you're going to need to reference it later, and you want to pay it forward for the rest of the community. So Discord's a great place to get started. I would say, like I was alluding to earlier, kind of home base. But I think there are plenty of folks who ask their question on Stack Overflow and then come to Discord to kind of promote it. And they have that, very deliberately have that in mind, is that they want a persistent answer. Maybe they'll get the answer in Discord and go back and like update their Stack Overflow question with their own answer if somebody's not going to answer it. So if you have like a serious bug report or something like that, then definitely I go through the more official channel so it gets into our pipeline and our system.
Is there anything else that you want to tell us about, or that we should know about what's happening or what you're doing, or if you need help with anything?
I'm working on an initiative right now there's like tons of either quasi-official or built by Mapboxer types of demos that are out there. So some of them live on people's like private, or not private, but personal GitHub pages, sites. If you notice, like my cheat sheet that I made is still on a personal GitHub site, just because trying to find the most logical place to like actually publish it on a Mapbox domain is difficult. So I'm working on that and trying to consolidate like a public list or a public catalog of projects, I guess. So they're not quite examples. Like we already have good examples for Mapbox GL, and that's all part of the doc site. These are things, as soon as you want to show like 2 concepts at the same time, it becomes like a separate thing that's not an example. And yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. So tune in maybe in another month or 2 once we get moving on it, to try and move some of these things over into this catalog and have like a one-stop shop for inspiration. Basically, bring your own project in with a reference to it. You could make a contribution, and it'll all be on GitHub and that sort of thing. So there's that. I also have 3 awesome lists that maybe you can post a link to in here, that I've been curating in kind of the same approach to this problem of things fly by all the time. So I have one for Mapbox GL demos. I have one for like just third-party developer resources in general, and then the last one is actually like not demos, but like full-on projects that use Mapbox that are just, you know, really nice, notable, or useful for developers to take a look at. So check out those awesome lists and please contribute if you can.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'm glad there is like kind of a reboot of developer relations. I think it has a lot of chance to build a great community, and we already have a lot of Mapbox developers out there. So looking forward to seeing how this continues to grow.
Awesome. Really appreciate you talking to me today.
Great. Thanks.